Welcome back to Drafting with Mark, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at dimensioning this. So if you haven't seen me create this in AutoCAD, I'll try to link a card up here and I'll remember to put the link in the description below. So if you're interested in seeing me draw this one, I'll make sure I do that. But in this video it's going to be strictly about dimensioning. Now, a couple of things I want you to take in mind is that I created this using millimeters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wind up scaling this down just so I can use regular inches units, and I'm also going to show dual dimensions. So if that's something that you're interested in, stay tuned on this video. Alright, so here in AutoCAD, here's the part created. The first thing I'm going to do is just make a generic title block. And in this video, I'm going to make a B-size title block. Remember that a B-size title block, its measurements are 17 by 11. So we're going to make a rectangle that's 17 by 11. So let's use the rectangle command. Remember that it always asks me where I want to put my first point at. So I'm just going to type in 0, 0. And then I'm going to type in my next coordinates, which is going to be 17, 11, and then I'll hit enter. All right, so there is my B-size rectangle. Let me go ahead and do an offset on that. So I'm just going to offset, give a distance of 0.25, and then I'll offset this rectangle to the inside. Let's go ahead and create this and make it a block. So I'm just going to go ahead and select both of these rectangles I just created. Then I'll go up to the word create here. And once this happens, I should get a dialog box that appears, which should be asking me for a name. So I'm just going to call it TB, just something short for title block. The lower left corner is already at 0, 0, 0, so I don't need to worry about this part. It's already converted to a block, and that's what I want. I will allow exploding, and it's going to be in inches. So everything else in this dialog box is fine. You can also see that you get a preview of it. Let's go ahead and hit the OK button. And now we have our title blocks. All right, let's zoom back to the extents of this. And what we're going to do next is that I'm going to scale this down, right? Remember that we have millimeters and I want to take them to inches. To convert millimeters to inches, I have to scale this thing down by 1 divided by 25.4. If I was going the other way, I would have to scale this going up 25.4, but since we're going down to inches, we're going to scale it down. So I'm going to use the scale command, which is here. I'm going to put a window around all of this, and then I'm just going to hold down the shift button and deselect my title block that's here in the middle. All right, so once I have that, I'll go ahead and hit enter. I need to pick a base point. I'm just going to pick somewhere here. Now I can show you how to use the calculator. Remember that I have to scale this down 1 divided by 25.4. Or you can kind of use a decimal equivalent like I like to do. And what I'm going to show you here is that I usually just type in 10 divided by 25.4, right? So all I'm doing is moving the decimal place. You can see that after the 1 I made it 10, and then that moved that decimal place on the bottom. All right, so here's one of those tricks if you don't know how to use the calculator or you don't feel like pulling out your own calculator. So I just converted it, and once I hit enter, you're going to see that that part will scale down. All right, let's kind of zoom in. Now we see that our title block is here and we do have our part here. Let's go ahead and move this, and I'm just going to use the move command, and we're going to move this inside of my title block. Let me turn my ortho off. And I just want to place it on the inside here. Okay. Let's zoom the extents and see what we have. Now I have this kind of going around. Now this is one of those things where you're going to have to determine and go, is this okay with me, or do I need to scale this down a little bit? Now this does look a little too big for me. I'm just going to select my title block here, and I'm going to go to the properties windows. I always have mine open, but if you want to just do a right click and select the word properties here, it's going to bring open your properties menu, which is going to be like this on the dialog box. The two numbers that I'm going to adjust is going to be the scale X and scale Y. So scale X, I will type in 0.75, and then scale Y, I'm going to type in 0.75. Okay, now you see I adjusted that scale, and now I can look at this and say, hey, that looks a little bit better in my opinion, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and move this down a little bit to here. All right, so now I have to decide which method that I'm going to use. Now right now, since I'm doing everything in model space, I have two choices. I can either do it standard wise, or I can use the annotation scale, right? I can take a look here at the annotation scale, and I'll kind of scroll down. The numbers that I have here is I have a 0.5, and I have something that's a 0.25 that I can use, and that's going to be this one here. If I don't have one that's at 0.375, and in another video I'll show you how to customize this. But if you don't know how to customize that, or one of those scales don't fit in the one that you want, then you can probably use the standard option, right? So what I mean by standard is that everything I'm going to type in will adjust that. So I'm going to type in LTS first. That stands for line type scale. I'll go ahead and hit enter, and then I'm going to put it as my scale factor. All right, so that's going to be my 0.75. Go ahead and hit enter. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create a couple of layers for you. So I'm just going to go to the layer properties dialog box here. And I'll wait for a second, and then I get a dialog box that should appear. And the one that I'm going to create is going to be a center layer. I'm going to go ahead and change this color on here just so we can see that color show up. And I think I'll make it color number 5, which is blue. Go ahead and hit the OK button. And then let's go ahead and change the line type. So where it says continuous, I'm going to go there. I'll go to load. I'm going to scroll down till I see center. I'll select center. Then I'll hit OK. And then I'll hit select the center, and then I'll hit OK. All right, so now it should be changed. I have a center one, and if I need any more, I'll go ahead and put them on there. But looking at the drawing, the only thing I have is I have some center lines that are going across it. There are no hidden lines shown, so I don't need to make that one. But it's kind of really simple to make layers and things of that nature. And if I needed to make another layer, all I have to do is select this icon. But for what we need, this will be fine and more than enough. Okay, let me go ahead and close that. Now I want to put center marks on this drawing, right? So the easiest way for me to use this, and I'm just going to switch over to the annotation option and to adjust this, right? But before I do that, I'm going to use a command so I can automatically put this on the correct layer that I have. I'm going to type in center layer. So I'm going to use this command here, and then it's going to ask me what layer I want to put it on. Well, we just created a layer called center, right? So once I type that in, I'll go ahead and hit enter. Now, when I use my center lines, or center marks in this case, when I select center marks and I select this circle, it's going to automatically put it on that layer that I just created. All right. Let me zoom into this corner here. And what I want to do here, let me go ahead and hit the escape button, is select this one. I'm going to select the square here, and I'm going to place it on this quadrant on the outside. Right. Quadrant happens to be one of my running O snaps. You can take a look at mine here, which is on this fly up, and I always like to have quadrant turned on as well as center. I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side here. I'm just going to select my center mark here. I'll go ahead and select here, and then I'll place it at that quadrant. All right, so now I have my centers here, and I can do the same on these two on the other end. So I can select this square, place it here, and likewise at the bottom, I'll select this square and place it on that midpoint. All right, so now those are created. Next thing I like to do is I like to go ahead and make my center lines that are going here. Now you got two different options of how you can do this. You can either use a center mark and rotate it, or you can customize and make it. In this case, I'm going to customize and make one for you, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a line from this midpoint here, and I'm going to go out to this center. I'm going to zoom into this circle. Next, I'm going to create a circle about how big do I want that to be, right? So I'm going to create a circle starting at this center point, and then how big do I want that circle to be? And that looks about fine to me. So I'll draw a circle about that big. Then I'm going to use the extend command. So I'm going to go to extend. I'm going to select my circle as my boundary edge. So I'll go to boundary edge, select my circle. And what I'm going to do next is hit enter. I'll select this line. I'm going to hold down the shift button and I'm going to trim off this portion, right? Go ahead and hit escape. Go ahead and delete that. And then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to just go ahead and make this line a center line. The easy way to do that is just to use the match properties. Select the source first, which is this center line here. And then I'm going to select the one that's on my circle. All right. So now that I have that one, I'm going to do one more, which is going to be located here. So let's go ahead and do that again. I'm just going to use a line. Go from this center. Go out to that center. Next, create a circle. So I'm going to go to circle. Start at this center. Drag out. Trim. Or in this case, extend. I'll use extend. Select my boundary edges. So I'll go down to boundary edges. Select the circle. Enter. And then I'm just going to extend that line here. Hold down the shift button and trim off that portion. Go ahead and erase your circle there. And then I'm going to go ahead and match properties like I did with the other one. So go to match properties, select your source line, and then I'm going to select here. All right. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and place my two circles around this, right? So I'm just going to go circle, center radius. I'll go from this center to that center, and then I'll create another circle with a circle center radius from that midpoint to that center. All right. Now that I have both of those, what I'm going to do next is go back to match properties, and it doesn't matter which one of these center lines I select. So I'm going to select this one, and then I'll select this one here, and then this one. All right. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use the array function, right? So let's go to array. I'm going to select these two lines, and I'm using array polar, by the way. You can see that it has the polar one that's going around it. So I'm going to select these two. Enter. Here's going to be my base point is here in the middle. So I'm going to select here. It's automatically set to 6, which is what I want. And I'm just going to go to close array. Now I have some extra lines here I need to get rid of. So I'm just going to kind of put a window around here. And then here. And you can also see that I'm using the blue window here. I'm just going to put a circle around there and around there. And then I'll go to delete. Right? Just kind of cleaning my drawing up a lot more. All right. Oh, looked like I got rid of my circles on the outside. Let me go ahead and undo that really quick here. And I didn't think about that when I was erasing those. So let's go back to erase. So I'm just going to select here and here. And I just got to make these a little bit thinner. So I just got to go here like this. And likewise here on the other side. Just make it a little bit thinner. And then I can delete those. All right. So now that looks good. Now I'm ready to go ahead and set up my dimension style. Remember, we're using the standard option here. So when I go to my annotation, and then I'm just going to click on the dimension style button here. Once I select that, I should get a dialog box open that we're used to using. And we're going to take a look at the standard method. So remember that everything I'm doing in this one is standard. I'll go to annotation, right? No, I'm sorry. I'll go to standard. I'll go to modify. And what I like to do is start off by jumping at the fit tab first. And the reason I'm going to tell you to do that is just go ahead and get the scale factor out of the way. So I can go ahead and put in 0.75 here. Let's go ahead and take a look at the text here. Let's shrink our text down a little bit. So I'm going to make it 0.125. Underneath the symbols and arrows, I will go ahead and turn my center marks off. Underneath the primary units, I'm going to have to tell it how many units do I want to see. Now remember that I'm converting this from centimeters or millimeters to inches. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make this 2 decimal places, and that should be more than enough for what we need. All right, let's go over here to the alternate units. I'm going to go to display alternate units. And what I have happening here is that you see that this number is going to scale those up. We don't want it to be that big. So remember the number that I scaled it down by 1 divided by 25.4, right? So that's what we're going to use, and then you can determine how you want your alternate units to be positioned. I'm just going to put it at below. And you can see it's going to throw me an error message, which I was kind of assuming that it was going to do since it doesn't like decimals. So let's go ahead and put this just like we did before. Let's go ahead and make that 10 divided by 254. All right, so I'll go ahead and put my units below. And now there is one of these tabs that will show you how to decrease that gap in between them. And I'm trying to remember which number it is. And if I remember it, or I'll bring it up in another video, I'll try to find it for you. But I think it's either one of these numbers. But that's something that we'll discuss at a later date. All right, go ahead and hit OK and close. All right, let's see how our dimensions should look now, right? So let's start off with an angular dimension first. So let's go to angular. I'm going to select this line here, and then my angle line here, and then I'm going to place that dimension. Let's do the one on the other side. So back to angular, this line, and here, and I'm going to place that dimension right at that endpoint. And this is going to be one of those things you're going to have to kind of be careful with. Sometimes it'll go over there, and sometimes it won't, right? So if you run into that problem, and I'm just going to go ahead and delete that last dimension that I made. If you run into that problem, you can come back, and when you're doing your dimensions on this, is you're trying to kind of touch it there and then kind of track it a little bit and see if it will get you. And you can see this one did come in a little higher, right? Another way that you can kind of alleviate that is you can just kind of zoom in and eyeball it close enough. So I can grab this grip and just kind of come down to where I get it close enough. All right. And I'll do the same on the other side here. So I'm just going to put this dimension on this one. It's an angular dimension. It goes here to here. I can place that one. Let's go back to angular. This one to this one. And what I try to do is sometimes I'll try to track off of that endpoint and see if that'll get it. But you can see that sometimes it leaves it just a little bit longer than what I need it to be. So always kind of select the grip. It's a good practice to kind of keep these lined up as best as you can. All right, and that looks close enough for me. You can see I have one more set like this at the bottom. Let's go ahead and look at angular again, and let's see if this one will play nice with me. I'll go here to here. And then I'll try to put the next set of angular dimensions, and this time I will try to do the endpoint thing and see if it will play nice. Sometimes it will, and sometimes it won't. So this one, I was able to kind of, touch it. It got the endpoint, and I kind of moved away from it. All right. The rest of this stuff should be kind of really straightforward to you. They're just more or less diameter dimensions. Let's go ahead and add those, and these should go rather quickly. So I'm going to go to diameter dimension. I'll click here, and then I'll place it here, right? Now I can go in here and I see that these numbers are not exactly what they should be showing, right? And I think I did the conversion wrong. So I'll go back and fix that, and lucky for us that it's an easy fix to do all of them. So let's go back to a diameter dimension and put this one on here. All right. Let me go back and change that, because now that I just thought about it, it should be the reciprocal of that. Let's go to back to the dimension style, go to modify. And now that I think about it, I knew I shouldn't have made that number different. All right. We're going to go to the alternate units, and we're going to go back and make this number 25.4, right? So once I change that, I'll go ahead and hit OK and hit close, and then these numbers should automatically adjust for us. And you can see that it did. Another thing that I should have done is suppress those trailing zeros, but I'm just going to go ahead and finish dimensioning this, and then I can go back and do that. So let's go ahead and put our other diameter dimension on, which we have sitting here. And let's see, we have a couple of radius dimensions, so let's go to our radius dimension. Let's place it on here. We have a radius dimension sitting somewhere on the inside of here. And I'll show you another way of kind of moving this. So you see this is sometimes kind of tight, or you get the extension. Another thing you can do is select this one. Go to your properties. You can either right click and go to properties or any other way. Go ahead and look at your extension lines and go ahead and turn this off. Right? So I turn the extension line off. What that does is it allows and gives me a little bit more movement with my dimension here. So I can select here, and now you can see that I get a little bit more. Let's see if it'll play nice with me today. There you go. And it'll play a little bit better with me, right? So I have that dimension there. Let's go ahead and put another radius dimension here. And then we're going to go ahead and tell it that it's 2 places, right? So I'm just going to double click on this dimension, wait for the editor to come up. Then I'm going to hit the home button on my keyboard, and then I'll type in 2x, right? I'm just going to go to the home button, type in 2x. And I usually like to keep my x's capitalized. I'll hit the OK button. And we can kind of do that around to the other side too. Up here at the top, this is one that's sitting at 4x, and then we have one that's at 8x, right? So just like we did on the other one, we just double click, wait for the editor to come up, and then go ahead and put the 4x or 2x in front of it, or 8x in this case. So this is 8x. And this one is 4x. All right, and now we have those done. The last thing I'm going to show you, and then I'll go ahead and adjust these dimensions for you here at the end, is to go ahead and fill out these informations giving me my whole stuff. So I'm going to go and take a look at the diameter dimension. I'll select this circle, go ahead and place that dimension there. And I'll go ahead and do the other one as well, since I'm already doing the diameter dimensions. And then I'll place this one. All right, now this is where things get a little tricky because we have dual dimensions, right? So I can tell it that I have 6 circles, and I can leave it here. So it won't be exactly like how the drawing is, because we already have the circle dimension, right? We tell it that it's 6 places. We don't have to tell it that it's on a bolt circle, because we actually, in this case, dimension the bolt circle, right? So when you got dual dimensions, it does kind of complicate how you can do your verbiage and things of that nature. So in this case, I can go, 6x and kind of leave it that way. Likewise, on this one, I can go 4x, right? Let me go to the home button and hit the 4x. And then let's go back and take a look at our dimension style, and I'm going to see if I can actually find out where that gap is, to close that gap. So let's go ahead and take a look into our annotation here, and let's take a look in the dimension style. Let's go to modify. And then we're going to go to the alternate units tab, and then we're going to get rid of those extra zeros there at the end. So that's going to be the first place I'm going to start. So I'm here. I'm just going to tell it, go ahead and get rid of those trailing zeros for me. And then underneath the text tab, in order to close this gap, it should be this offset from dimension line. So let's go ahead and make this number a little bit smaller. Right now it's sitting at 0.09. Let's see what 0.05 looks like. And you can see that it did close these a little bit. Let's go ahead and go to OK. And then close. And we'll give it a second to update. And that looks a lot cleaner for the overall drawing, right? All right. So you can see that sometimes dimensioning will take a lot more time than actually creating a part. But this is the stuff that is super important, because I always like to look at it, and if you can't dimension, then you can't build any other parts. So that's why dimensioning, it takes a little bit more time, but doing it the correct way is where you will earn your most money as a drafter at. So I know it's nice to create things and do that, and I know I kind of seem like I'm harping on it, but this is kind of one of the more important things to do, is learning how to dimension and use those things, right? So I know this one is typically longer than what I like to go, but I want to thank you for hanging in there with me. And if you watched this far, that is really something special, and it shows that you really do care about wanting to learn how to do dimensioning and things of that nature, right? So I'm glad you stuck with me. If you got any questions or comments, go ahead and leave them below. And like again, thank you for watching, and we'll see what we're going to do next. And I'm going to try to do more dimensioning videos. Okay, so thank you for watching.